Beautiful Sombrero Beach. Just stopped here checking out a market. Kids are finding fossils. We're enjoying the beautiful water. Back up out of there. Hi guys, today we are at
Fort Zachary Taylor,
and we're just exploring around, waiting to do a meetup with some people we met at another campground. They have 3 boys.
Yeah.
And while we're waiting for them to get here, we're just exploring the fort, and then we're gonna go out and do some swimming and snorkeling out on the water, which is a beautiful blue water.
It's really
this behind us is the blacksmith area. It's a beautiful day. Probably going to hit upwards of 80 plus, 85. We're enjoying it.
And it's not like the cold water in Maine.
No, it is nice and warm.
So they built this fort in 10 feet of water. My name's Kevin, guys. I've been here about 6 years. I worked at Fort Jefferson at the Dry Tortugas for about 8 years, and so I know a lot about both of these fortresses. If you have any questions about them, feel free to go ahead and holler it out. Type of gun that could get through the 8-foot brick walls, and so the fort became obsolete right after the Civil War ended. So a lot of these forts after the Civil War, their guns got scarfed up by salvagers. Some of them got shipped up to the Waterville Arsenal up in New York. But these just sat here because of our remote location. So after the Civil War, this fort just sat here until Spain invaded Cuba in 1898, 90 miles this way. That's when the fort went from 3 stories to 1 story. They took the top 2 levels of the fort down so you could no longer see it from 15 miles away. During the Civil War, a big, tough fort protecting the only anchorage down here, whoa, 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 that's a deterrent. But now they wanted to, shh, there's a fort over here. So if I plaster in the walls white, and lowering it to 1 story. From 15 miles away, you didn't see a fortress, you saw a sandbar coming out of the ocean. None of this land was here. Okay, you have to remember that, guys, as we walk through. Well, this fort's not only the Civil War, not only the Spanish-American War, but World War I, World War II, and it was also modernized for the Cuban Missile Crisis. That's 5 different confrontations, never been fired upon. This is the longest serving U.S. coastal fort. And we got big treasures here. Because in 1898, when they built this new structure aiming south towards Cuba, they took all 198 cannons. They took 400,000 projectiles and they buried them in the walls of this new structure to protect the structural integrity of this new battle. So we have the largest collection of Civil War cannons in the world because they were protected by the fortress they came to protect. So it's a beautiful story. I'm glad you guys are coming with me on this journey. We're gonna walk through the granite walls of Fort Taylor. We're gonna stop by my stack of 10. I want you to touch these cannonballs. Come on. Some of them are still buried inside the battery, but this is the largest cannonball we had during the American Civil War. This is for a 15-inch smooth bore rodman. Now these are not connected together or welded together. Would you like to see if you can make it move at all? See, we're trying to see how heavy this might be. I know. I know. I know. I know. I know. I know. It's all about leverage now, guys. Remember that. Let me slip in for a sec. Thank you. It's really hard. I weigh 200 pounds, so I weigh a lot more than you do, and I do this almost every day. But you feel that on your feet? You feel your feet move from over there? This is about 300 pounds. So this flying through the sky, hitting a boat, would cause some considerable damage. Now, you've got, maybe 40 years later, you've got different guns that go 15 miles. They're very accurate. You load them from the breech. So this is what it looked like after the Civil War. They called this the Endicott period. Well, guys, this wasn't finished in time for the Spanish-American War. It was very quick. So it was used for World War I, but they added another battery for World War I over here called Battery of Dale.